So there's a couple interesting games during Week 8 of the 2025 NFL season that features players facing off against their former teams, and they definitely are going to want to enact some revenge. Honestly, both of these should be absolute bangers, and in today's video, I'll break down both of those matchups, quickly revisit the dominant Chargers win on Thursday Night Football, look at key injuries from around the league, the NFL finding the Giants, Cam Scadaboo and Brian Daboll, talk about a few other intriguing storylines, and more right after. Alright, first up, Thursday Night Football came and went, and so did the hopes of many Vikings fans after watching that pretty bad game. It actually appeared to start out great for them. Isaiah Rodgers had a pick six on the opening drive, but it was actually ruled incomplete upon review. All scoring and turnover plays are reviewed, and that wiped 6 points off the board, and LA proceeded to score at will, taking a 21-3 lead into halftime. Didn't look any better in the second half either, as the Chargers dominated both sides of the ball, controlling the time of possession 40-20 in the end. LA won 37-10 in a nice bounce back game for them after getting handled by the Colts last week. Herbert was money all night, throwing for 3 touchdowns and scrambling for 62 yards. His favorite target was Ladd McConkey, who reeled in his 3rd touchdown in the last 4 games. Kamani Vidal had another solid game, filling in as they deal with all the injuries to their running back room. They lost Najee Harris for the season, and Omarion Hampton's on IR. He had his second 100-yard game, though, in 3 weeks. One of the stories of the night, though, was Oronde Gadsden. That's the 5th-round rookie tight end, and he had another great game last night, catching all 5 of his targets for 77 yards and a touchdown. Over the last 3 games, Gadsden has racked up 309 receiving yards, becoming the second tight end since 1970 to have over 305 yards in a 3-game span. At least I think that's a real stat. Either way, pretty impressive stuff from the rookie, and it appears the Chargers may have found another gem of a tight end. Speaking of which, last night, Keenan Allen joined the legend Antonio Gates as the only Charger with over 11,000 career receiving yards. Justin Jefferson also made a bit of history last night, becoming the fastest player in NFL history to reach 8,000 receiving yards, doing it in 84 games, barely edging out Julio Jones, who did it in 85. That was about the only positive thing for the Vikings last night. Carson Wentz was not great, okay? Actually, he was bad. I know his non-throwing shoulder is in a lot of pain. I actually thought at some point during that game they should have pulled him, but he kept going out there and looking hurt every single time he hit the ground. He was holding onto the ball for too long at times, taking 5 sacks by the game's end, and he threw his 5th pick in just 4 games. J.J. McCarthy is believed to be making his return next week, but is that going to help? The defense has been bad the last couple of weeks. They're down a couple of O-linemen as well. 3-4 at the moment, and they've got the Lions up next, then the Ravens, who should have Lamar back, which I'll touch on here in a bit. They actually have the 5th toughest remaining strength of schedule, according to Tankathon, talking about the Vikings. So good luck with that. As if it wasn't challenging enough, their franchise left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, left the game early after coming in with knee soreness. It's something to monitor because almost a year ago, Darrisaw tore his ACL on that same exact field on Thursday Night Football last season, albeit against the Rams. He's been back for a few weeks now, but with it being a short week, some thought the team may opt to rest him. Well, they didn't, and now he appears to have re-aggravated that knee. To what extent? We don't really know, but hopefully it's not anything too serious. Now, L'Jarius Sneed, Titans cornerback, he is going to hit IR. He was placed on IR yesterday, so he'll be out, quote-unquote long-term, at least 4 games with a quad injury. It happened during last week's loss to the Patriots. They fall to 1-6 on the year, and now they're going to be without one of their top corners for at least the next 4 games, potentially more. It's especially concerning because last year in Week 6, he suffered a quad injury that kept him out for the remainder of the year. He had played in every game up until this point, although he hasn't exactly been the shutdown corner that he was while in Kansas City. Quarterbacks actually have a passer rating of 137.7 when targeting Sneed this season, which is obviously not good, and it's safe to say the L'Jarius Sneed experiment has not worked out well for the Titans. They sent the Chiefs a 3rd-round pick and a 7th-round pick swap in exchange for him. Then they signed him to a 4-year deal worth $76.4 million, so they were definitely all in on this guy, but he's going to have missed at least 15 games during his first 2 seasons in Tennessee, and when he has been on the field, his play has been subpar. That goes without saying for just about the entire Titans roster, though, to be honest, so I don't know how much to read into that. It's just Really unfortunate that Sneed has not been able to stay healthy. Next up, we've got some great matchups this weekend, with the best of them having to be Aaron Rodgers going up against his former team in the Green Bay Packers. Now, sadly, this game is not being played at Lambeau. The Steelers are the home team, but nonetheless, it should make for some great entertainment on Sunday Night Football. One of the biggest narratives is, of course, going to be Aaron Rodgers against Jordan Love, the guy that Green Bay drafted in the first round back in 2020. Shocking pretty much everybody, Love waited in the wings for 3 years before Aaron Rodgers went off to New York, just like Brett Favre did when he handed the keys over to Rodgers. Well, Jordan Love should have the upper hand in this matchup. The Steelers have been underwhelming on defense this year, to say the least, especially against the pass. They're giving up the second most yards through the air in the league. Meanwhile, Jordan Love is 12th in passing yards per game. Plus, he's getting Christian Watson back into the mix, who's making his season debut coming off a torn ACL from last year. Pittsburgh will get Calvin Austin back for what that's worth. He missed the last 2 games with a shoulder injury, but he's good to go for Sunday night. The Packers are coming off a narrow win over the Cardinals, in which Micah Parsons had 3 sacks. Meanwhile, the Steelers, they've had a longer week to prepare after their loss to the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. Rodgers is coming off of back-to-back games with over 230 yards and 2 touchdowns, so maybe he keeps it rolling against his former team and they find a way to win. I personally like the Packers more in this matchup, but let me know your take on it in the comments down below. And before I get into the rest of these news updates, I gotta let you guys in on 3 of my favorite picks from this weekend's games, using Underdog, of course, the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. The Dolphins are allowing nearly 160 rushing yards a game, literally dead last in the NFL. That's why I like Bijan Robinson's higher on 74.5 rushing yards. That's something he's done in half of his games this season. But again, this is the best matchup possible for him. Then give me the higher on Cam Scadaboo's 56.5 rushing yards. He's hit that in his last 5 games. And this time around, he's got the Eagles, who he just rushed for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns on a few weeks ago. And finally, I've got to go with the higher on Aaron Rodgers and his 199.5 passing yards, because he's got a revenge game coming up against the Green Bay Packers. They are currently allowing 212 passing yards per game. Meanwhile, Rodgers has thrown for at least 200 yards in 5 of his 6 matchups this year. And if all 3 of these picks hit, you can win up to 3.24x on your money. So tail them if you're feeling it. Or, of course, you can make your own picks by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player's stats to win up to 1,000x on your money. And don't forget to use code CBTH, where any new sign up can play just $5 and get $100 in bonus funds plus a gimme pick in the lobby. Okay, the next one to watch for me, and next game in general, is going to be Javonte Williams, who, like Rodgers, is also in for a revenge game against the Denver Broncos. He's heading back to Denver as a member of the Cowboys, and they'll look to put an end to the Broncos' 8-game home winning streak. That is the longest active streak in the NFL right now, because the Bills lost earlier in October, though it almost ended last week for the Broncos until the Giants collapsed in the 4th quarter and Denver rallied off 33 points. Javonte, meanwhile, is having a career renaissance. He's 2nd in the NFL in rushing yards while posting the highest yards per carry of his career and already topping his career high in touchdowns. It'll be a tougher matchup for him this week, though, against the 9th ranked defense against the run. They're even better when up against the pass, allowing the 6th fewest yards through the air. But Dak Prescott has been rolling as of late, and get this, if he manages to throw for 3 touchdowns and 0 picks, it'll be the 5th game in a row that he's done that, which would tie him with Russell Wilson for the longest streak in NFL history. Dallas will be looking to exercise some demons come Sunday, because they haven't beaten the Broncos since 1995, losing to them in 7 straight matchups. It might be 8 if Bo Nix plays like he did in the 4th quarter of the Giants game. Dallas is dead last in passing yards allowed, and to make matters worse, Trayvon Diggs has already been ruled out for the 2nd game in a row now due to a concussion that he suffered at his own home last week. That's certainly not going to help, and their struggles on defense are what lead me to believe the Broncos have a chance to get this W. That being said, I'm not going to commit fully to the Broncos here, because Dak is playing at a MVP level right now, and with Javonte looking as good as he has on the ground, combined with Pickens playing out of his mind and the recent return of CeeDee Lamb, if things come down to a shootout, I think Dallas does have a chance to get it done. A team that desperately needs a W this week is the Baltimore Ravens. They're in danger of falling to 1-6 and basically kissing their season goodbye if they can't beat the Bears at home this week. The good news is, it looks like Lamar Jackson will finally be back for the first time since week 4. Today, he was a full participant in practice, and even though he's listed as questionable on the injury report, the fact that he practiced in full today after being limited on Wednesday and Thursday does lead me to believe he's going to suit up. I will say this, if Lamar can't go or has to leave that game for some reason, the Ravens' new QB2 is Tyler Snoop Huntley rather than Cooper Rush. I mean, it makes sense. Rush doesn't really fit how Lamar likes to play, so I never understood that signing in the first place, but oh well, I digress about their backup quarterback situation. I'll be honest with you here, if you look at the Ravens' upcoming schedule, they do have a chance, if they can win this game, to go on a decent run here. Starting in week 9, they've got the 1-6 Dolphins, then the 3-4 Vikings, followed by the 2-5 Browns, and the 0-7 Jets. But of course, you have to worry about taking care of Chicago first. No easy task, considering they've won 4 games in a row and are not going to be a pushover by any stretch of the imagination here. DeAndre Swift is coming off a back-to-back 100-yard games, and Baltimore is 26th in rushing yards allowed, so look for the Bears to try and control this game on the ground. Despite that, I just feel like the Ravens find a way to win here. You are in desperation mode. You're coming off of the bye week. It's a kitchen sink game. You can't afford to lose. You're getting some key starters back like Lamar Jackson, in theory, and Kyle Hamilton. So there's really no excuses here. The Bears, on the other hand, are dealing with all kinds of injuries. Kyler Gordon and Tyreek Stevenson have been ruled out. That's no good for their secondary. Then Cole Kmet, Roshan Johnson, and Braxton Jones have also been ruled out. Plus, with the Ravens at home, I think you gotta pick them in this matchup. You know who I don't like in any matchup, though? The New York Jets. They could be playing the local high school team, and I would not feel confident in picking them to win. Okay, maybe that's a little extreme, but they're 0-7, with their odds of falling to 0-8 this week being very high. Aaron Glenn still refuses to name the starting quarterback, even getting a little feisty with the media, who are just looking for some clarity on whether it's going to be Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields.
That's exactly why I'm not telling you, because I don't want to. I don't know how many times I got to answer you that. It's not going to change.
Well, all right then. If I had to guess, I think it's going to be Tyrod, but does it really even matter at this point? Probably not. What is going to make a difference for them is not having Sauce Gardner or Garrett Wilson. They've both been ruled out. This is going to be Wilson's second game in a row now that he's missing with a knee injury. Meanwhile, Sauce suffered a concussion last week and wasn't able to clear protocol. No Sauce should make things a lot easier for Joe Flacco and that Bengals offense, who are coming off a big win over the Steelers. That game was on Thursday night, so they've also had a few extra days of prep. Plus, they're healthier and overall just the better team. So give me the Bengals in this one, regardless of who starts at quarterback for the Jets. Speaking of Cincy, though, it's worth noting that linebacker Logan Wilson recently requested a trade. A couple weeks ago, the Bengals opted to start their 4th-round rookie Barrett Carter over Wilson. And even though at the time Logan said there were no hard feelings, he clearly wants to be somewhere where he can contribute. Wilson was an early 3rd-round pick for them back in 2020 and has started for them since 2021, logging 4 consecutive seasons with 100 tackles. His play hasn't been great this season, though, ranking as the 47th highest-graded linebacker per PFF, if that's your kind of thing, but a change of scenery may do him some good, and at 29 years old, I'm sure there's a team out there that would take a low-risk flyer on him. Interestingly enough, Wilson is now the 2nd veteran linebacker to request a trade from the Bengals recently after Jermaine Pratt did the same back in February, and the team ended up releasing him later that offseason. Next up, here's some other injuries worth mentioning ahead of this weekend's games. A.J. Brown, Cam Jurgens, and Brandon Graham have all been ruled out for the Eagles, and yes, you heard that right. Brandon Graham signed back with Philly earlier this week after retiring in the offseason. He's still ramping up, so that's why he's out. But Jurgens is out with the knee, and A.J. Brown aggravated his hamstring and missed practice all week. So those are a couple of key losses for them as they try to get revenge on the Giants, who blew them out just a couple weeks back. If you remember, that was the game where Jackson Dart went into the medical tent to get evaluated for a concussion, and Brian Daboll and even Cam Scatterbo popped their heads in there to check in on him because they really didn't want Russell Wilson out there, and obviously that is a big no-no. You can't interfere with any sort of process in the concussion protocol when the medical staff and all that is taking a look at him. Well, that's obviously a big problem for the NFL, so they slapped the Giants with a $200,000 fine. Brian Daboll got a $100,000 fine, and then Cam Scatterbo himself got a $15,000 fine. But back to injuries, Brock Purdy has been ruled out once again for the Niners, which means Mac Jones will be making his 5th start for the 49ers. I saw somewhere that if he wins this game, he gets a $100,000 escalator or a $100,000 bonus incentive, however you want to phrase it. So I actually am going to root for him there. That's a nice little piece of pocket change, $100K. They're 4-1 with him as the starter anyway, so it could be a lot worse. But he will be without Ricky Pearsall, who's set to miss yet another game with his knee injury. They're playing the Texans, who will also be without Nico Collins, their top wide receiver, but also Christian Kirk, both ruled out right now for this game, with Nico Collins being out due to the concussion that he suffered on Monday Night Football. Then Bryce Young is doubtful with an ankle injury, so that means it's going to be the Red Rocket himself, Andy Dalton, trying to get a win over the Bills, who are coming off of their bye. It's worth noting they will be without wide receiver Joshua Palmer, and their safety Taylor Rapp is going to IR with a knee injury. So the Bills are going to be a little vulnerable here. They've also lost 2 straight and are looking to try and right the ship in this one. And then the Titans will be without 2 key players, aside from L'Jarius Sneed, Calvin Ridley and Jeffrey Simmons. They've both been ruled out to injury, so I expect the Colts to win by at least 20 points, and I'm not even joking. The Colts are 14.5-point favorites, and considering they already lost to them by 21 at home this year, I legit think Indy could win by 20. We've got 6 teams on a bye this week, with 3 of them coming from the NFC West, interestingly enough. But let me know which of the 12 games you're looking forward to the most this weekend, and with that, I'll see y'all next time.